Hello everybody. Next up we make the long trek up to Newcastle, where we will be hosted by Newcastle United, obviously. Kick off in what I like to refer to as the Preview Alistair Memorial match, in honour of my late best chum, is at 8 PM on Monday, which is quite simply a two-fingered salute in the general direction of travelling supporters everywhere. I would genuinely like to know what efforts the club went to try and prevent supporters having to endure a 600-mile round trip, the return leg of which would be impossible by train on a Monday night, with the last train home leaving around 30 minutes before full time. Actually, given the current ownership's attitude to the supporter base, I suspect they didn't give it a passing thought and simply sat back and waited for the cheque to arrive. So Newcastle then. Now here's a funny thing. They scored 6 goals against us last season, of which only one was actually legitimate. Blatant refereeing errors was the order of the day, compounded by VAR ignoring the obvious in order to cover up the officials' errors. The away match alone had 5 separate match-changing decisions go against us, a record for a game not involving Liverpool. There'll be more on refereeing a bit later on. Their season's been a little bit up and down so far. A decent start saw them win 3 and draw 1 of their first 4, though their first 4 did see them pick up mandatory wins against Southampton, 1-0 on the opening day, and Wolves, 2-1 at Molineux, as well as a 2-1 home win over Tottenham and a 1-1 draw away at Bournemouth. There then followed a less productive spell, which saw them lose 3, away at Fulham 3-1 and at Chelsea 2-1 and 1-0 at home to Brighton. In the middle of all that, there was a 1-1 home draw against Manchester City and a goalless draw at Goodison Park. They then returned to winning ways at home to Arsenal, beating them 1-0, and a comeback win at Forest, 3-1, all of which has left them in 8th place with 18 points from 11 played so far. Creditable enough, one might say, but one might also say that 8th was hardly the sort of thing that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had in mind, when they most categorically did not buy the club at all, as our lawyers would like me to make clear. They did a little bit of business in the summer. With all eyes on profit and sustainability rules, their first deal involved them receiving around £38 million for Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest, money that appears in the books immediately, then spending £20 million of that on Odysseus Vlachomidos, who has effectively taken the role of third-choice keeper, his fee being spread over the life of his contract. All of this being booked in by the 30th of June to make the books look nice. The irony is, of course, that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, were they actually involved in running the club, which of course they're not, have pockets deep enough not to worry about that sort of thing, if only they could. Things were slightly less complicated with the signing of defender Lloyd Kelly from Bournemouth. He arrived on a free, his contract with the Cherries having expired during the summer. He spent 5 years at Dean Court, and the move northwards represents a reunion with Eddie Howe. The arrival of Lewis Hall from Chelsea actually took place last season, his season-long loan coming with an obligation for them to make the deal permanent this summer. The fee was £29 million, with a further £7 million potentially coming in on add-ons. One of those add-ons may or may not have been triggered by his appearance in the recent England matches against Greece and Ireland, those 2 caps being his first at full international level. In a remarkable bit of charity, they sent £15 million to Sheffield United in return for the services of Danish striker William Usula. He's yet to find the net in any of his 6 appearances, of which 4 have been in the league. There were a couple of more signings, neither of which we will see this weekend. Daisy tells me that veteran keeper John Ruddy arrived on a free from Birmingham to make 4 keepers on the books, whilst Serbian midfielder defender Miodrag Pivas, an £800,000 capture from Jednovisto Ub, come on, surely you know them, he was immediately shipped out to Willem II on loan to give him more experience. Looking ahead to Monday night, they have a number of long-term injuries to deal with. Lascelles, Krath and Botman will all be out until the new year. There is a doubt about the availability of Callum Wilson, one of those players who always scores against us. He's rated no better than 50-50 at time of writing. Kieran Trippier looks a little bit more of a better bet with a 75% chance of being available. However, stalwart defender Dan Burn will definitely be missing, having picked up 5 yellow cards over the course of a season, earning him a 1-match ban. Let's move on, shall we, to the wild and wacky world of association football. PGMOL really are the gift that keeps on giving, aren't they? In a recent preview, I referred to David Coote as gullible. Such was his propensity to fall for every dive going, no matter how obvious. I think you could now add rank stupidity to that list of faults. I mean, I wouldn't say that calling Klopp a four-letter word was particularly controversial. The general reaction from the football world was that what was said was pretty much fair comment. However, doing so on camera was prime Darwin Award stuff. I mean, if that weren't bad enough, further video appeared of him appearing to indulge in what may or may not have been some form of recreational pharmaceutical. I mean, anyone who takes that sort of stuff is already low on the list of people I'd want in charge of a professional football match. Anyone who does so in front of a camera clearly lacks the sort of sound judgment required for the job in the first place. Now, whilst lacking that sort of judgment is clearly no barrier to a career in PGMOL, indeed the continued presence of Stuart Atwell in their ranks suggests it may even be a prerequisite, you do have to wonder what sort of screening they go through before they pick these people. Meanwhile, my legal people, Messrs Sue Grabbit and Run, advised me that, according to some sources anyway, Mr Coote is challenging the authenticity of both videos. We'll see. Elsewhere, on what I'm reliably informed is known as social media, Tottenham have redesigned their famous pigeon on a beach ball badge, removing the words Tottenham Hotspur from the logo, which, as some wag pointed out, represented the removal of the only title they've had in years. Let's move on to us, shall we? Well, it's tempting to say that the last match was so long ago I can barely remember it. However, such was the paucity of anything remotely of interest during the match, I could barely remember it 10 seconds after the full-time whistle, never mind a few weeks later. It was a game so bad that Match of the Day gave serious consideration until leaving it till last in next week's running order. Okay, the second half was slightly better, and in the end, Pickford was probably the man of the match for the one-man barrier he erected in the last 15 minutes. But overall, it's one of the worst games I've seen in my life. I think the only bright spot of the past couple of weeks has been Bowen's goal for England. It was nice to see him easing himself into the match like that. Kudos is still on the naughty step for causing Spurs players to feign going into a coma, such crime being deemed much more serious than the feigning of the comas themselves. And he's had a miserable midweek anyway, missing a spot kick as Ghana failed to qualify for the African Cup of Soup. Returning to availability are Areola, whose return to fitness from an unspecified knock may not be enough to see him replace Fabianski, such was his previous form, and Alvarez, who has served his one-match ban for his 2 yellows at Forest. However, each passing week does make me wonder if Fulkrug will ever play for us again. It's not a happy place at the moment, is it? You can tell when things aren't right at a club. Every story purporting to come from those in the know carries negative overtones. Take Areola, for example. Had a lousy game up at Spurs and, having picked up a knock, was replaced by Fabianski for subsequent matches. Or, if you prefer, he had a big bust-up with Lopetegui, having been dropped. Now, I've no reason to suspect that Areola's absence was down to anything other than injury. However, such is the state of things that any time a player is not present, all the wild theories go into overdrive. Every player that arrived during the summer is said to be regretting it, and for all I know, even the tea lady's looking for another club. The truth or otherwise of all these stories is almost irrelevant. The fact that the state of the club is such that conditions are perfect for the incubation of such tales says it all. Lately, Sullivan has apparently agreed with about a dozen different managers to come in and replace Lopetegui any day, week or month now. Lord knows how he finds the time with all he must have on his plate at the moment. My own worry is things will get worse before they get better, and I'm afraid I can't see the improvement starting on Monday night. We're not travelling well at the moment, and having to go up to Tyneside for a Monday night is the least ideal of circumstances under which to start a recovery. So, with suitably heavy heart, the £2 that was going to go on a week's break in a certain Cheshire care home, it's £1 for 2 weeks, will instead be spent on a wager at Minster Winston's Turf Accountancy Emporium on a home win. Make it 3-1 to them then. Sorry. Enjoy the game.